Okay, we have this Google Doc. I started some notes for your for this banner appearance of yours on this show, and one of the things I wrote in here is, what if we talk through every computer you have? And you kind of went off.
I thought you meant like, oh, we should list down the specs of the computers, and then that kind of made me depressed. I started being like, oh right, yeah, no, there's this machine. Oh right, the kids gaming machine. That's another one. So then I don't know how many are on here at this point. 7, 8,
7, 8, 1, 2, 3,
my
4,
freaking
5,
power bill, man.
8 computers on here. It's like that one in the closet that you forgot was there until you pinged it on the network, and it had an uptime of like 4 years.
I just had to just start going down and being like, what? Which is great, because I'm actually going to copy and paste this at some point and be like, all right, what do I have here? And I did not count the bin, the storage bin full of pieces that could make a computer, because of course that's potential computers don't count.
I think it has to run. I think it has to be running to count to make it on this list.
Yeah, well, it's like what is a computer these days? Is you started putting Raspberry Pis on here, and I was like, okay, like, is the Mister a computer really?
Yes,
is Mister's kind of a computer? Okay, laptops? You didn't put your laptop on here, did you?
No.
Yeah, so that's definitely a computer.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just too many computers. This is why. The dream, Brad, the dream is the giant rack, and all of these computers are just rack mounted.
That's right.
Somewhere.
And mostly virtual.
Mostly virtual. So I hope when we start this show, I hope your audience is very understanding that I am an amateur computer collector. And I do it because power, we've reached the point where power is infinite and it doesn't matter, right?
That's right.
We just tap into the goodwill of humans, and that powers everything. And B, I'm a collector. I'm a hoarder. Like, we got this freaking computer. This could do something.
You're not a collector. You're a professional. All these things are serving a role.
I'm a professional collector. Well, yeah. Hopefully, when we start talking about it and recording, there's mercy is taken on the amateur status. My amateur status collection.
This is like, I sit here and look at this list, and I just think to myself, is this what home ownership is? As many computers as you want.
This is what a big power bill is. This is when you're like, we should turn the air conditioning off. Nope, that didn't do it. Maybe it's the stupid disc shelf you bought for your NAS. That's like a 24 disc or 24 bay power suck. I think we talked about this somewhere else on the Ramblecast. It's the arc of doing a home lab thing, right? It's like, you can do it. Should you do it? And then, okay, how do I do this would lower my power bill? How do I turn all of my super micro cases into Raspberry Pis?
Maybe we should ask Jeff Goldblum.
You could have done anything. What did you do? Home Lab finds a way.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Brad.
And I'm Vinny.
You sure are.
Hello. Yeah, hi. I'm Will. How do you do a Will impression?
That was a gruff Will. That was a burly Will.
I'm Will.
Okay, wait. Is he Batman? Is he Batman?
I'm Will, and let me tell you about Windows 95.
I'm looking at your list of computers here. I feel like you're the one in the Batcave.
Yeah,
like the 1989 Batcave. Like you welded a bunch of pipe together and mounted all your computers on these different pipes, and now you're solving crimes with them.
It's like if Batman weren't a billionaire.
Okay,
that's to say if Bruce Wayne were a dude living in a little plot in Jersey, and the Batcave were a basement that has sewage in it. It's very much like that. Same amount of bats and bugs in there. We share that in common. It's fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of sewage in the actual Batcave.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely guano. Who do you think's mopping up all that stuff? I could almost assuredly it's not Bruce Wayne. It's
Probably not.
Yeah, no.
That's what poor Alfred.
They don't talk about that.
Nope.
Alfred pulling bat poop out of like fans and stuff. It can't be good for your health.
No, probably not. You know what is good for your health though is talking tech.
Yeah, and we have a lot of this on the Ramblecast, and I feel like when you asked me to just like, okay, put some things down you want to talk about, I think we've got about 2 pages here.
Or almost
filled out.
2.5. Yeah, I think I had like 5 lines of notes here, and then I woke up this morning. It filled like 2.5 pages.
I was like, look, there's plenty of stuff that we could talk about that I have been over the last, I don't know, couple of years here dabbling into, and always feel guilty going into too much detail on the Ramblecast. So I'm ready to pop.
Bursting with all this pent up tech discussion. Some housekeeping real quick. I'll say Will's availability was limited this week, so he's taking a pause while you're here to fill the seat.
Yes.
For people who don't know, I'm guessing most people know, but you and I have a day job over at Nextlander.
The day job. Yep.
Yes. Which is kind of it's in the Giant Bomb vein. People who know us for years, going back to Giant Bomb, very video game focused. But we do have the one podcast, the Ramblecast, where we ramble about anything.
Yeah, we're allowed to kind of deviate from the game's mandates and
by ourselves.
we have deemed it okay, but sometimes it just goes into like, what'd you do this weekend? And I feel like you and I often are like, I did this super in the weeds tech thing that this is what I did, and I'm going to talk about it.
And Alex gets to just smile and nod.
Alex
for
goes,
20 minutes.
Should I build a NAS? Every time I hear you guys talking about it, should I build a NAS?
You're probably good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Don't open that can of worms.
I don't know. I don't know.
Whatever. Everyone could benefit from a little network attached storage. But yes, I think we have maybe been redlining the deep tech talk on the Ramblecast a little bit lately. So let's consider this an overflow discussion.
Yeah, look, I'm ready to overflow. Actually, this is perfect timing because I've actually just been in the weeds doing some stuff, and I think I'd like to ask your audience to have patience with me as I am. There's very little here that I actually know. I mostly explore this stuff, and I'm not sure how people with like hobbyist home labs are viewed in the actual tech world from people who do it for a living. If they're like, God, these freaking, it's like professional drivers looking at people with like I just bought this car and I'm just trying to soup it up on my own in my garage, being like,
I've got a 12-line signature on this forum with every spec in my with 48 hard drives and this like $8,000 Xeon. Well, look, as long as we don't approach the TrueNAS forums, I think we'll be fine. On that front,
I judge the people who have been in it the longest by the people who as every response is linking to an older post. Like, did you read this one? I've got this problem where I can't get look, it's answered here.
Yes.
Or the immediate response is you have to post your logs. Which okay, look, I got it.
Yep. I need to see what's going on in there.
Yeah, you want to know. You didn't provide enough information. You're like, that's fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's provide as much information as humanly possible.
Okay.
Bullet point number 1: Vinny's tech stack.
I got full stack here.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, as we said in the cold open, you run a lot of computers, and most of them are doing stuff for our business in some way or another. So I thought, honestly, I was just like, what if we just do like a full accounting of everything in the basement?
So I tried to, I guess let's just start with my desktop, which is my gaming PC, which is, I guess, the kind of Swiss Army knife PC that's what I'm on right now, or it's one of the computers I'm on right now, talking to you. And that's the Ryzen 7 5800X3D. A
fine vintage.
A fine vintage. So only recently had I moved into the AMD world, and specifically the Ryzen world. This was kind of a when I built a different PC I'll talk about in a second, the vMix PC, we were talking about, I had always stayed in Intel. I'm an old man. I came up during the Intel AMD wars and kind of the AMD NVIDIA wars as well. And I always went with Intel and I always went with NVIDIA. I understand Radeon and AMD and all those products are completely fine. And I don't know, Catalyst drivers and get whatever you need. what was it? I can't remember what it was. Was it Doom ran better on
Was it Quake 3? They got caught. There was a minor scandal. They got caught like tuning performance based on what the name of the executable was you were running. Or,
Okay.
like using performance in some, I think if I remember that correctly, it might have been Quake 3, but yes, their driver benchmark shenanigans have been a thing for a long time now.
But I've always been, there's a couple of things. One, I was always fascinated by the Threadripper. And it was before we left Giant Bomb. Actually, it's before we got purchased because it was on a CapEx thing. I was going to build a giant Threadripper VM box, a Proxmox box, and I had spec'd it all out. And I was super excited about that to expense that.
We had that quarterly budget.
Yep, and that never happened. So anyway, that's a long way to say I have kind of embraced, and again, your audience can let me know. I have embraced the Ryzen lifestyle and actually have a Ryzen running in at least 2 machines now.
Okay.
And so the Ryzen 7 5800s in this machine, it's got 64 gigs of RAM. It had 32, but I just had the extra RAM sitting there when I did an upgrade somewhere else. And so I popped it in. Do I use it all? Not nearly. Like maybe once in a while if I ever fool around with like any kind of AI thing or something locally. If I ever want to do that, it'll bloat up the RAM or anything like that. But like that's very rare. And I haven't done that in a while. So it sits there. This has the 4080 in it, the NVIDIA 4080. And then it's just got a whole mess of drives. Like I just run a bunch of hard drives.
That's a lot of drives. 500 gigabyte NVMe.
That's the system drive. Yep.
2x 2 terabyte NVMe for games.
That's a game. So I split my games up into Steam. It has basically one whole drive, and Flight Sim almost has another one. But Flight Sim and Epic and basically all the other game services are split up on EA. You know, anything that installs Microsoft, anything that installs outside of the Steam directory kind of lives on that other drive at that point.
I think I saw, I guess you can actually legally talk about this now. I think I saw Flight Sim 2024. They've gotten the install size way down. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're going to stream content into a cache, into a rolling cache. And so Flight Sim, the way it works now is it's a monster and it just constantly is updating everything every time you launch it. And there's so much add-on stuff. And so they are doing the core install and then basically streaming content into a rolling cache. I asked them if you can opt in to do like a total local install. They kind of looked at me a little funny. So I'll have to go back and check my notes and see exactly what they said.
Too much data.
It's a lot, dude. It's a lot of data. And that's just the stuff. I mean, Flight Sim is streaming in constantly. And what I'm talking about right now is just the kind of files you need locally to run. But the actual map data and all that stuff is also streaming in currently. Yeah. It's like petabytes, I think, of data.
Jeez. So I look at this list of drives here and it reminds me, this is how I did drives on my desktop until this newest build. And I was like, you know what? It's time to shed the past. System, games, scratch disk, work, internal backups, and slop.
the 8 terabyte slop drive. You don't have a slop drive where you're just
I absolutely, well, arguably my entire NAS is now the slop drive.
So the slop drive is everything.
All the slop drives rolled up into a meta slop volume.
Slop drives is where my download folder points to. It's where they're like, hey, I just need to put this giant thing somewhere for a second. It's where like my Dropbox lives. It's where everything. It's where like, oh, this is my intermediary thing where I'm like managing my music library or I'm managing my ROMs or. They all go on the slop drive. So I've got folders that are just like delete me, delete me, delete me, test, delete me.
Yep. Desktop, new desktop, backup one.
Yeah. That's all on the slop drive. And that thing, you know, at some point I swapped it out for, I had a 4 terabyte Barracuda. I swapped it out for an 8 terabyte Barracuda because too much slop. And files got big. Files get big.
They sure did.
Yeah. And then the internal backups, I really just back up my system drive. I do regular backups with that. And then I keep one old Windows install user folder. I'll just when I'm ready to, and this is going to happen soon because I'm still on Windows 10. When I'm ready to either do a reformat or do a system thing, I basically try to pull everything out of my user folder that I can, and I keep that until I feel very secure, which is never. I never feel that there's always some game save or some weird config file that I need to go digging into that thing for.
Yep. Everybody should do it. I do that to an external SSD, but same thing. It's like that thing sits in a drawer until the next time I reinstall, and it gets wiped and backed up again. Because you never know.
You never know.
Never know what you're gonna have to go into your old app data for.
Yeah, and so I use for that stuff. What do I use? Acronis. I think I use Acronis to back stuff up. And then I've got 2 drives for work backup, 2 Passport drives. That one I just rsync my work, certain things from my work drive to. And I just use rsync because it was a thing I knew, and it was a way to just do it granularly, where I'm just like, look, I don't need this folder, but I do need this folder, and I do need this, and I do need this, and I need all the permissions, and I want it to do it in a way that is additive and not replacing stuff, or just add everything that's new. And then I back up that drive to another. I make an image of that drive using Acronis. So one is I'm a firm believer in the one is none mentality. So
yes. A couple notes before we move on here real quick about the AMD versus Intel thing. A friend of the show, Gordon Maung, has got the old saying, "Nobody ever got fired for buying Intel." So I know what you mean on the cloud until recently, maybe.
Yeah, maybe until recently, right? Yeah.
I went back and forth because I had kind of strongly, I was like, oh, you guys should look at these Ryzens, like the value, like the number of the cores per dollar is very good these days. You can get a lot of cores in these things. And then I got an AMD machine as well last year, and people know how that went. And I ran screaming back to Intel, and I was like, man, did I give them bad advice? And then this thing happened with these recent Intel chips. And now I feel better that you guys are on AMD again.
Look, I don't follow this stuff as closely as you or your audience, but AMD, I did a decent amount of looking into stuff on the vMix side, at least, because that was very important to me, that vMix runs well on an AMD system. And plenty of people said it. So Brad, you probably remember this. When I built the vMix machine, which I guess I could just move into now, the vMix machine is on a Ryzen 9 5950. When we built it, I went a generation back. I didn't do the newest generation of AMD stuff because when we were building it, they were just coming out, right? The new 7s were just coming out.
Yeah, the 7000 Zen 4s, yeah.
And so I was like, look, I just want stable. That's really what I want for vMix. I don't want the newest, hottest. I want it to be stable. And it's been, knock on wood, pretty stable.
Yeah, that 5000, the Zen 3 generation of Ryzens, they are still putting out new SKUs in that generation. Like in the last few months, another like a 50, let's see, there's like a 5600 X3D now, I think. Like that thing was so solid and popular and cost effective. They are still iterating on it. So I think that was a good choice for a production machine for sure.
Yeah, and that thing that's the vMix machine, and that machine has a 2070 in it, and really what it just needs is to have the right packages for the video
codecs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think exactly what it is, but
you have to go on the Microsoft Store and get like the H.265 license so you can use that codec and whatever.
Yeah, but on the do you remember this? On the consumer side, they had locked in how many encodes you could do, locked it up. I think they've actually in subsequent drivers unlocked that.
Yes.
But it used to be locked up, and so basically I just need to have that encoding, decoding a capability that came in, I think, in the 2000 series, right? The instruction packages there for, I think, I don't want to talk out of turn here, but I think that's when it came in. Maybe it was the 1000s.
Yeah, I think the like the 1080 series had, it had the basic NVENC, but it got way better. It was the 2000 series where it actually got worth using, basically. Because it was pretty bad before that. Real quick, like vMix, for people who don't know, is kind of professional video switching software, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I'd call it prosumer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting to hear.
Yeah, well, because it's not it's a software switching suite, and it's basically can run on your own hardware, right? You don't need turnkey solution. You don't need bespoke hardware. It runs on, you put it together, you put the machine together, and it's relatively inexpensive. It's like it's not expensive. I would say in the production, as far as things go in the production world, it is dirt cheap.
Yeah, and it replaces for a long time, like Giant Bomb fans, replaces like the functionality of a TriCaster, for example, without the $30,000 box.
Yeah, so that's an example of, I would call that a production or professional. Even that though. Even that though is, if you probably laughed out of like a newsroom if you were like, oh, we TriCaster, but maybe that's different. Maybe that's early TriCaster. Look, we've been doing this for a long time. Early TriCaster, you went to their forums and you were like, okay, look, I'm having trouble. And it was a lot of church groups. It was a lot of small venues that were using this stuff to be like, these are the people who are using it. What at the time was not broadcast ready.
Yeah, but it's really funny to hear you mention that. I've run into that on forums a bunch too. I always think of the Noble Church group as like the test bed of affordable AV equipment.
Really is like and like audio equipment too, like for microphone stuff. So. But that's probably changed as things went 4K and studios had to broadcast centers and places, and the growth of smaller studios had to ditch their old 1080i equipment, right? And I know some places still use a lot of that really expensive, like $180,000 equipment. Like the control room at GameSpot was one of those, like big
really?
Oh yeah, that stuff was ridiculously expensive. $60,000 control panels and the like. It was very, very expensive. We had an actual Chiron machine in there to do overlays like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like, it was serious. I mean, that production at its peak for on the spot probably needed 5 people to run. And now with a vMix or with a similar thing, you could do it with one person, and it is often done with one person. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, but yeah, that's vMix. So vMix is the software that we use, and we'll probably get into how we use it in a second. But that machine is the Ryzen 9 64 gigs of RAM with the 2070 in it, and that's been pretty good. And then the hard drives are whatever. Really, there's no storage necessary on it. I have like 2 NVMe's on it. So those 2 computers are actually what sit next to me right here. That's
okay.
Backs facing me, so I can access all the ports.
Okay, sure. So this is all very instructional for me because you have so many computers, and I only like absorb through osmosis stuff you talk about here and there. I don't have like a full picture of what you're surrounded by and how you're using it. So it's like, it's actually useful for me to hear like, okay, what is he recording on? Like, which machine is doing the actual work when we're doing a podcast, or like what is his video pumping through, and like what is the backup recording running on? So
basically what happens, technically what happens, like what's happening right now as I'm recording this is I'm recording my local audio on that desktop PC, and then I have OBS open, which I have 2 monitors on my desktop PC, but I actually have a 3rd monitor out that goes into a capture on the vMix machine, and I use OBS to route over whatever I want to the vMix machine, which is also then sending out to 2 other recorders. So this is getting recorded 3 times. One with just my audio,
Wow.
and then twice with the your audio as well, the full mix down in case something happens. And then that's basically OBS is what I use to generally send stuff to vMix. I could just use NDI. It's become pretty stable and it's fairly good, but I just like the hardwired connection. It's sure. If I can do it.
Yeah, I'll say real quick on the backup recordings. I think to our credit, if I can blow our horn a little bit here, the number of times where we've had to take that mix down of a video call, which is going to be lower quality because everybody's going through compressed video call audio and stuff, is like almost zero. I can't honestly think of a single time we ever had to just take that crappy video call mix down and make that the podcast. Like we all record locally, so we have high quality audio and we can do, individual processing on each person's track and blah, blah, blah. And I don't think we've ever lost enough of the primary recordings that we've even had to go to that mix down.
Once or twice, I think we've had to use it. I think occasionally we've had to use portions of it where somebody's recording, they notice it, and then they restart again, and we just have to fill in a chunk.
Yeah, if you ever hear like the audio quality change mysteriously for like 3 minutes, that's why. Yeah.
The funnier, the more, the case I run into more, which is I find funny, is I usually do this setup no matter what I'm on. Like you're assembling this podcast, and so like you didn't ask me to do a backup. You didn't ask me to run the system, but I usually run this no matter if I'm guesting on anything. And I've had the person on the other end ask me for this.
I was just about to say that is as a podcast guest, that is the most conscientious thing you could possibly do.
Like doing this, Austin Walker will also do that. I've noticed that when he guests on things that I have, he will run a full. I mean, that man also podcasts quite a bit.
Yep.
So I've had people ask for the mixdown. I also use the mixdown for syncing and for making sure that when stuff has video components to it, that it is matching the video component and not matching the local sync that we would do, right? Kind of weird thing, maybe in the weeds here, but when we do the podcast, we sync it to what everybody's local time is when we sync, when we clap and do our thing, so that it's probably a little bit less laggy between people's call and response. But when we do something that has video, like the Ramblecast, we actually have to sync to whoever's recording it. Otherwise, it won't. The lips and the audio won't match up. So. Yeah. Anyway, that's the vMix machine. And then that pushes out to another computer. Cause this is because I can, and because I'm a belt and suspenders kind of guy. I don't stream from vMix. I just compile everything in vMix and I send that feed off to another computer, a laptop I have that does the streaming. And that's just an old MSI laptop with a 1070 in it. And all that does is run OBS and push out to YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. The reason I don't do that from vMix is I do like separation of concerns, let's say. If the vMix machine is streaming and doing it's still a computer. If it's streaming and doing all the compositing and stuff, any one of those things locks up, the other thing is going to be a problem. So we've had cases where, look, if my computer playing a game crashes, which happens, the stream still goes. And I just have to say, hey, hold on a second. I'm just doing this. If vMix locks up or something weird happens there, the stream can still be hitting Twitch and won't stop. I can just put like a technical difficulty sign up on the stream and doesn't just go dead. And I should mention all of these things. The fun thing is these are all in about 2 or 3 backup power UPSs. So that it is fun to see if my power goes out, which has happened here and there.
What does and doesn't die.
Yeah, what does and doesn't die.
I think that happened a few months ago where like your camera went black, but we could still hear you talking.
Yeah.
And because I've got a similar setup here. And in fact, I think I may have made similar choices to you when I immediately was like, I bet his power just went out. Yeah. And he doesn't have his camera on the UPS, but he does have the computer and the mic and the audio interface.
So I recently bought one of those smaller ones that are just like almost looks like a big power strip that I put the camera into.
Interesting, like a tiny UPS. I've been thinking about getting one of those, but I can never I go out and look at guides and they'll be like, oh, this Amazon Basics is the one to get. And
that's
I'm like,
what I got. I just got like one of those Amazon Basics.
Okay, maybe I should just do it.
It's for non-critical things like the camera that are like, okay, that's fine. I think we had a thing recently where my power went out, right? And I was like, look, I've got 25 minutes of backup. Let's finish this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You were literally in the text chat of the video call we were on, like typing. It's like, all right, 15 minutes left, 10 minutes left.
And I could see the thing come up because I have it hooked up to, I have that UPS hooked up to my PC. I could see the thing being like, your computer's going to shut down in 2 minutes. We're starting the process. Be like, yeah, we got to wrap this up. It's getting real close. So that's basically the chain of PCs. That's the 3 main PCs: my desktop, my gaming desktop, Swiss Army knife, the vMix machine, and the streaming box, which is just the MSI laptop.
Yeah, the streaming box is a great amount of freedom to have for the thing that's doing the like switching and compositing, not to be bound to how healthy the stream is, because there are so many notifications now associated with beginning a stream on like Twitch, for example. Like people get notifications on their phone if they follow you. Our Discord is set up to pop a thing every time a stream starts. So if you're having technical difficulties on the thing that's doing all the streaming and you have to restart the stream like 4 times, now you've got 4 notifications going out. It feels so gauche, like it feels unprofessional. So to have the stream just healthy and going constantly, no matter what is, screwing up on the back end is really nice, to the point that I'm kind of surprised there isn't more of an industry for like all-in-one little streaming boxes.
Like the Pearl.
Oh, sure. Okay. Maybe the Pearl, like expensive semi-prosumer like prosumer type stuff.
They have them for sure.
Space?
Yeah,
Okay.
they've had them. I had them at Giant Bomb. I was a big fan of them. I had a couple of them. Also had a dedicated H.264 at the time recorder, which was great. But the we used the Pearl, and I think you guys had a different experience than I did at Giant Bomb East with it. I really enjoyed it, which was basically just a dedicated streaming box. But the nice thing about the Pearl at the time too is it could do multi-encodes locally and then send those up to be combined into one stream with different encoding choices. There was a while there at Giant Bomb, you do like 3 or 4 encodes and you send those all to different endpoints, and then it would scoop them all up. And that was awesome.
That local encode stuff is just, I'm sorry to derail. We need to get back to your computers, but the local encode stuff for streaming is just going to get more important, because I don't know if you followed what Twitch is doing. Like with their next gen codec stuff, as they move into AV1 and H.265 and stuff like that, it looks like they are looking to offload more and more of the multi-stream encoding to the user rather than their servers. So they're going to have you, and modern video cards can handle multiple encodes at a time. It's not the end of the world, but like it seems like you're going to be encoding all the different quality levels of your stream soon and sending all of those up to them.
Yeah, and that's basically what we were doing back at Giant Bomb East for a bit there. And so that, I'm always worried about taxing a computer's video card or the ability for a computer to do that, especially on the vMix machine where I've got decoding coming in from, and we'll talk about SRT stuff in a second here, I'm sure, but I've got decoding happening there, and then I've got encoding going out. And what happens on the vMix machine if you're streaming also is, look, this is a belt and suspenders thing again. I like that I have a hard wire and a hard gate from what happens on this machine where you and Alex and any guests come in and are talking and chatting to what goes out to the world. So I actually have just 2 scenes on my streaming laptop, one that is live and one that is not. And so I need to be like, look, I don't have to worry as much about mics bleeding in or is the thing fully fade to black or whatever, because that scene just does not have those on this OBS machine, just does not have those inputs. It just will not push it through. I mean, it still makes me concerned, but I really enjoy that.
Just have a panic button you can hit. Let's just shut this off right now. Something got out. Or
just pre-stream stuff where look, I've been on a lot of streams. I've been doing this a while where like you're just not sure. Hey, look, you might think you're on your pre-show countdown, but a mic is bleeding into that.
Yep.
And it's just going out to air, or you faded down. I've mentioned this before, but we on the control panel on a TriCaster, we literally had points where it just wasn't pushed down all the way. And so the mics were still open.
Oh, wow. On the, like a little T-bar?
Yeah, on the T-bar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just wasn't. So the screen looked black, but it didn't register as all the way down. So audio would just still come underneath, which, that stuff happens. So I like having just a separate machine that is like, I'm streaming out, but the signal isn't reaching that computer really. There's kind of a gate on there. So I do enjoy that also. So those are the work machines basically that I have. Is it worth talking about the other ones?
Yeah, we could work quickly. I mean, this is the fun stuff to me, but you've got multiple, 3. I see at least 3 different types of server here.
I've got my NAS. We've talked a lot about that. And so that NAS was built in 2016. And so what is that? It's getting close to 10 years here, 8 years. With that. So I don't know how much this thing still holds up, but it still works fine for me. It's got a Xeon E3 1276 in it. I don't even ask me what that means anymore. I'm sure at the time I had looked that up and it was fine, but
I looked it up right before this. It's a quad core.
Okay.
So 4 cores, 8 threads.
And that's at a 3.6 gigahertz. It's got 32 gigs of RAM or ECC RAM in it, which probably could be bumped up with the amount of storage I'm kind of running in there now. So it's got I'm not gonna say I was near the beginning of FreeNAS, but it was generally not too far away where people were still using USB drives for their system drives before they were like, just don't do that anymore. So I still run I just only recently stopped using USB flash drives for the local or for the system drive, where I had 2 in there running as a mirror. And you just chew through them like 2 or 3 a year, right? They just fail. You just pop them out, put them in, fail. I recently upgraded to USB SSDs to see how they hold up. And I think I got like the iBuffalo ones or whatever they are, just like little SSDs, and just see how they run.
Yeah, even cheap SSDs these days are, they're going to be big enough and have like probably at least rudimentary enough wear leveling on them that when they're writing themselves, they move around wear on the drive they're writing over and over so that they're not wearing themselves out. So those should last. Like I've been on a pair of $20 SSDs for like 3 years now as my boot drives in there, and zero problems. So
okay, great. Yeah, and again, knock on wood. This whole segment should have a knock on wood. And then so I just have 2 of those running as a mirrored pair for that. And then for my pools, I started off with Seagate's. I can't remember if it was 2 terabytes or 4 terabyte drives. Those blew up, I think, too soon. I started having errors with those, and I started RMAing those, and eventually I had 8 of them. I've almost cycled through all of them. I mean, now that it's been 8 years, that makes sense. But really early on, I don't know if I got a bad batch or what. It felt like under a year they were really not holding up.
That might have been like the tail end of, I believe, if I remember, this is getting fuzzy. I think there was like flooding in Asia, like in the, it might have been Thailand. I forget where like most of the hard drives are made, or there's a lot of hard drive manufacturing there. And there were just like, issues in the manufacturing after this ecological disaster that just kind of made hard drives unreliable for a while. So that might have been coming off of that.
Maybe but I switched back over to Western Digital, and then we got into, I'm not going to get into it, but then their whole, their red line that went through that whole thing.
I feel like a prisoner to Western Digital.
Yeah.
There are so few hard drive companies at this point, and I think their stuff is probably still arguably the best, or, it's as good as you're going to get, but a lot of their policies are just god awful.
Their RMA stuff I've always found to be fairly smooth. Like I've RMA'd a lot of stuff through them over my lifetime, and it's usually pretty good.
Yeah, for the most part. I will say real fast, I bought, we got into that whole the shingled, the SMR stuff. I ended up with one of those shingled drives. We've talked about it on here before. The public relations disaster blew up, and then they started offering to replace people. So I RMA'd that drive, which had never been used before.
Yeah.
They sent me a refurb replacement.
That's lame.
And by the time, and then it went back in, it was kind of a cold spare, just went back in the closet. By the time I got around to using it like 2 years later, completely busted, like
really?
Totally non-functional, like would not even reliably like spin up.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible.
Not get it to show up in the operating system. And by now I'm out. At that point I was like, well, it's not really big enough to be super useful for me at this point because it's so old now. So yeah. I just ate the money
sucks.
that I spent on. It was a rotten experience.
I've never had that. I actually just only like a month and a half ago I had to RMA a drive I got for my security system here. It was one of the every system now has its own type of drive, right? So this was a surveillance, the blue or purple, whatever it is. I think it's purple. I got one that was coming up with smart errors like a week or 2 in, and so RMA'd that, and it was a pretty smooth process, I'll say, for that.
And they sent you a new one.
They sent me a new one. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So I mean, look, I don't do RAM burn-ins, and I don't do drive stress tests. I just don't do it. So like, I take it out of the packaging, I put it in, it goes right into production, it goes right live. I don't.
Nobody got time for that.
I probably should, but like I don't. That's not the life I lead. And again, this is hobbyist stuff. This isn't. And when I say production, literally, I just mean I put it in my basement and it goes. Though I guess with work stuff, I can use that. Yeah, it's
amateur production.
Amateur production. So this is my 2006 FreeNAS. This is my big one. This is my main one. It's in a super micro chassis. It's got IPMI, which I love. I would never build a computer without IPMI if I could avoid it. But you pay for that, right? And then this is one of those things I kind of regret, like collecting Masterpiece Transformers, where at some point I had the eight bays on there. My wife uses this also for her work, for her company. She works out of the home as well. She's got 2 companies and she uses it. I was like, look, I'm running out of, what's the cost to go to 8 terabyte drives versus to just get more bays? And I wasn't thinking about the power consumption. I was just thinking about the space. and I just wanted one. I just wanted to not worry about it anymore. So I bought one of those freaking NetApp disc shelves, used ones that has like, I think it's 24 bays on it.
All right.
They're not all full. Only like another 8 are full on it. And I could put drives in there for days.
That's freedom.
That's freedom. But man, that thing probably sucks. So like spinning drive, like filling that thing up with spinning drives probably would melt my power, my power consumption.
Yeah, I've looked into that stuff before, and I think it very much depends on like what generation of drive we're talking about. Like, you know, hard drives from 10 years ago are going to be way less efficient, but hard drives generally use a lot of power at spin up, you know, at boot. But then once they're going, I think the momentum kicks in, and they're like not as bad as you would think. I want to say I've got 6 hard drives in mine. I think once they're fully spinning, it's like 6 watts per.
I should stick a kilowatt on one of those things at some point to see what's going on.
That's the thing I also always think about doing, and then like convince myself I'm better off not knowing.
Yeah, like I mean, really, I bought it because again, like I could justify it with work and with my wife's company, and then like, at some point I'll probably make a pool for the kids, like to have their stuff on there. And then of course, you know, I'm sure some people are saying like, you know, a NAS isn't a backup machine. Of course, it's not a backup machine. So I have my other NAS.
That's what your backup NAS is for.
Yeah, and I did move over to TrueNAS actually not that long ago. So no more FreeNAS. It's on TrueNAS. I am not TrueNAS Scale. I am still TrueNAS BSD.
That's right.
But I do have my other NAS, which is a very small box. It's in a mini PC box. It's tucked up in the attic, and that is just enough storage to back up that 2016 NAS. So that just has 4 Western Digital 10 terabyte drives, and I think they might be in a RAID 5. I can't remember how I set that up. So it's just one as a backup. I think that's 5, right?
Like one parity drive.
One parity drive.
I always lose track of that stuff. I think RAID 5 is one. You can lose one drive, right?
I think that might be what's in there. I can't remember it. I have to double check. It's been a long time. That thing's been up again since 2019, just running, and I haven't, knock on wood, gotten any notifications about drive failure in there yet. No smart tests from there.
That's one of the nice things about running TrueNAS is they make it pretty easy to, if you have 2 different TrueNAS machines, it's pretty simple to set up like, hey, just replicate this one to this other one, like on this timer.
Yep. And so that's what that does. I just pick the pools I want to back up, and it just replicates over to there.
Yep. Love the geographically distinct locations for the 2 NASs, like one in the basement, one in the attic.
That's
like,
right.
Flooding is going to go down. Fire, I assume, is probably going to mostly travel up. One of them is probably going to make it through unless you have compound disasters, and then you're fucked anyway.
So the thing is, I don't do offsite backup, which I probably should. But the thing I always thought about doing was like, I should probably just have one more backup happening where it's just to an external drives that I could just grab or something. I should do cloud backups. But a lot of it, when I looked at it at the time, a lot of cloud backups, if they suspected or you told them you were on a NAS, the prices go way up versus a desktop machine. Yeah,
you're pretty much paying like business pricing for any like bulk storage where you're doing like, I don't know, I'm pulling numbers out of the air here, like $6 per terabyte per month or something like that. Like it gets very pricey. You have to start picking and choosing like, okay, what data can I really not live without here? Because if I back up this entire NAS, it's going to be $50 a month, and that's no good.
And to be honest, like aside from things that have sentimental value, it's mostly I'm backing up stuff that just would take me a long time to reacquire, or not be worth my time to reacquire. Like my ROM collection, my a lot of my books and the ebooks and stuff that I've backed up. You know, it's just a lot of time to go.
Plex library.
Plex library, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Even a Plex library, I feel like, you know what? I could probably do better reencodes now on some of these, and just kind of make it better. Or I ditch all the DVD rips I did and just get ask Alex to see if he's got Blu-ray editions of like all these things. So that's my backup NAS. That's the one up there. Again, one is none. So basically I have no backup for my NAS, but my wife does backups from her stuff to cloud backups. And so she's got a true backup solution.
Real quick before we move on from the NAS stuff, like for your wife and I guess in the future for your kids, if you give them storage too, like are you just doing SMB like Samba for network shares for them?
So I do mostly SMB stuff, SMB and SIF, I guess, right? What's a SIF share?
SIFs. I believe it's the same thing. I think it's just different names for the same.
So my wife is on mostly on Mac. So I did have a pool set up for or a share set up for her with gosh, what is the Mac AFP? Is that deprecated at this point?
Yes, is it AFP? I forget. Whatever Apple's network storage sharing thing was. Yes, they did deprecate it. I think it still technically works, but like even they are like, hey, come on, don't use this anymore. Yeah,
so I think I had one of those, and I think I might have just moved that over to SMB. I also had a SCSI share for a while, which I was doing for my desktop PC backups to a SCSI share, which was awesome. It was great because it would just mount locally like a drive.
Yeah, was that iSCSI, I believe?
Yeah, iSCSI.
Yeah, okay.
It was a little bit of a weird, wonky thing to set up at the time, but then I realized when I went to go restore from it, I was testing it out in a restore. The restore wouldn't do it off of that share. So then at some point I was like, well, that's not restoring. Then what am I even doing? So I stopped doing that. I think I deleted that. So yeah, mostly SMB shares. Bunch of different shares. It's it's like my drive and then a media share and all that other stuff. So that's the Plex stuff. I used to run that's the NAS stuff. I used to run Plex within a jail or whatever they turned jails into eventually, and then I decided to separate that out and bought the hottest item on the market, one of those little like NUC boxes.
Yeah, all-in-one PCs. Those things it's a hot market. Those things are crazy capable now.
Yeah,
and only getting more so.
So I bought one of those and a little like i7 box with 32 gigs of RAM, a couple $100, and I run Plex off of that now. The storage is still on the NAS, but the transcode, because it uses that Intel graphics, integrated graphics, is fine. I find it to be fine, and it runs really well. It can do captioning. It runs. I find it to run better, and I don't hear my NAS spinning up every time I go to watch a thing. I don't hear all the fans on that case spin up, which is really what I wanted to stop taxing that thing for serving a Plex file. So that little NUC runs next to it. And then, of course, since I had that, then I just put a bunch of other, like, I don't know, like ran like a Pi-hole and a Docker on it. I bought it. I deleted Windows, put Linux on it, and then started maybe putting some other things, services on it. It's kind of, I have an older PC that's for my kids that is running an i7 6700 for their gaming PC.
The venerable Skylake machine.
Yep. That thing has a 2070 in it, and that basically runs. It sits in the basement, and the kids connect to it through Steam Link, or actually at this point Moonlight. And they are able to play in the den or in the living room, whatever you want to call it, and they can just kind of play PC games off of there. My son has we have such old shitty laptops in our house. Like, we have just the most garbage. My wife has a nice, more modern MacBook. Aside from that, we're all a decade and a half on old, real garbage laptops. But I am a pretty firm believer in just having a thing that can connect to our network and run a terminal or connect to something else.
Just a browser.
Yeah.
You can do a browser. Everything runs in the browser anyway.
Yeah. Or just connect to another stronger PC and then just basically stream that. So that's what my son will do for something like a Helldivers. He just has this crappy laptop that couldn't run, Drug Wars on it, and basically connects to this machine, and then he can run Helldivers from the local version of Steam Link. So that's pretty cool. I would like to flesh that out at some point, their gaming stuff, and think about how to do that with terminals in their rooms for like very slim, small terminals. I think that's my computers.
Did we talk about the Proxmox machine?
Oh, and then there's
last one.
I love Proxmox. I'm a big Proxmox advocate.
Yeah, it's super popular on our Discord.
My brother was it EXSI?
The VMware one, right?
Yeah, but he's actually said that their policies. He works more in enterprise stuff, so he that's what he was familiar with, and I was Proxmox, and he said he's actually thinking about switching over to Proxmox as well. I guess the XSI has done some policy changes, which
VMware got bought by, I think, Broadcom, and I certainly don't follow that world, but I feel like I see more grousing about VMware stuff since that acquisition.
So I love Proxmox, and I find it very easy to use. So that's an i9 9900 running on that machine. Originally, that machine was like, I've got a spare thing. Let me mess around with Proxmox. At this point, it's got 128 gigs of RAM on it.
Okay.
That's where I got my other two 32 gig chips from. Sorry, there were two 16s in there, and I put those in my desktop PC. That's why I have 64 in there. I just swapped those out. 128 gigs of RAM because it's, it can be pretty RAM hungry, especially if you're running like game servers and whatever else on there. That's where I finally bought my first enterprise SSDs, my Microns. I bought those.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Bought those used they came with 15% wear on them, or 10 to 15% wear, and they're rocking.
But even the 85% you have left will last you like 20 years.
I hope so. I mean, I had two Kingston cheapo SSDs in there that were at 0%.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
They had just gotten chewed through. I mean, I run ZFS on that machine, so I think there's a lot of writes happening on those drives. As far as I understand it, you and your audience might understand it much more than I do. But that thing runs there. So I have 4 2 terabyte Micron drives running in an array there, an array to array. And that's mostly for just VM and container storage. And then I back up to the NAS. There's a couple of other drives in there just for system stuff, but on that machine, that's where I virtualize my Mac that I use just for the podcast, for that software. I virtualize a bunch of Linux machines. I have my dev environment on there. My son now has a dev environment on there.
Got to give him his own VM so all those Python upgrades can't screw everything up.
Yep. And then also so that when if we have time, we could talk about it, but that's where I do. He is on a LAN that is just isolated to that LAN. His machine cannot talk to any other machine on our network. It just goes straight back up to the internet. So
it's like full on nuclear option, like only way to be sure.
Yeah, he's not physically separated, but network wise, he should. If he downloads anything weird, it should just be able to destroy that one machine and hopefully not go out sideways. What else I have on there? Raspberry Pi runs on there in a Docker container. The Ubiquiti dashboard runs on there. That's where I run my change detection Docker container. So only recently have I gotten into Docker. And this was the thing, if we had time to go into, I'd love to ask your audience, because there are virtual machines, there's containerizing, and then there's Docker or similar, right? All right. And it's like, sometimes I'm just not sure what to go with. Right? Like when do I do a container, which to my understanding is mostly, it's kind of repurposing your base operating system and just doing what it needs to do specifically for itself.
Runs on the host kernel, so it's accessing the same system resources, and there is a layer of separation there, but it's all using like OS hooks. It's like system calls into the existing kernel, so there is sandboxing, but theoretically if bugs emerge, there are theoretically ways that it, like a process in the container could escape if the right attacker knew what they were doing and had the right exploit. They could theoretically, just going to keep saying that, could escape the container and touch the system, like the host system. But even then, there are ways to, control what user account the processes in the container are running as, so that even if they do get out of the container through an exploit, they're still running as a user with like few to no privileges. But a virtual machine, zero chance of escape, like fully segmented, like no, like at the hardware level, is using like processor features to segment things out and be its own computer. So,
but it's more expensive.
But yes, like there are more resource considerations there. Like a container will only use as much RAM as the thing it's running needs to use, whereas a VM, you have to allocate, like, I want to give this 4 gigabytes. I think maybe newer hypervisors, it might still be able to scale RAM usage.
Proxmox can scale it. I'm pretty sure it just uses what you're needing. It'll balloon if it needs to, and then it kind of shrink. I think. So I've got a Windows 11 machine on there. I should just switch over to Windows 11. Like it's we're gonna end of life what next year. It's
fine. Asterisk. Let's say like it's mostly fine. There'll probably be like a dozen things that will annoy you when you switch. Okay. They're slightly different, but like I've gotten used to all of them. It's October of next year is almost just about a year from now is when they're supposedly end of lifing 10, but I actually wonder if they're going to push that back because I think I've never seen more people more resistant to upgrading.
Yeah, so, like Windows 10 mostly works kind of fine for me. I put the Windows 11 VM on there to do my dark business mostly and to try out Windows 11 and be like, okay, like I'm gonna download this kind of shadier software that I would like to keep contained on this thing. That being said, its network is still integrated into my main network, so it could go sideways if it wanted to. But you know, I build them so that I could nuke the VM if I need to and just start over and mess around in there. I just like it's just a joy to me to be able to spin up something very quickly, mess around in there, and then break it and destroy it. I find great joy in that process. I have messed up so many Linux builds and you know been like, oh okay, I'll just delete this. I don't need
it. Yeah, especially when you have the ability to like clone or copy a VM. Like you kind of set a container or VM up the way you like it, and then you're like, okay, now I'm going to not touch this again. I'm just going to clone this off, and I can foul it up however I want and just kill it and clone it again.
Or like mine backs up I think every couple of days or every week. You just restore from backup, and you're just like, oh okay, of the whole machine. So I really enjoy that process and running that locally. And again, I've gotten more into Docker stuff. So now I just have a kind of bigger VM that runs Docker containers. Like sometimes I don't know. Should I be making these their own containers, or is this a Docker container fine? And doing networking stuff within Docker can sometimes be a bit of a headache. Oh, so I run Traffic as well. And this is like for my reverse proxy stuff and certificate signing and all of that runs now in a Docker container within a VM.
Yeah, I think if you want to just move on to the reverse proxy exposing services to the internet stuff, I think that was the point at which we flew a little too close to the sun on the Ramblecast.
Yeah.
When we started talking about that stuff.
So it's okay. I'll make a long story short here, and again, this is definitely not my area of expertise, but I'm trying to figure it out. So my son, because he's 12, wants to learn Python, and he's really, really into it. And I say because he's 12 because it feels like Python just feels like a great language to get into. But he's not doing machine learning. He's not doing like data analytics
science
and stuff. Yeah, he's not doing data science. What he's doing is trying to make web stuff in Python. And you know, for my money, that's not necessarily the most efficient way to make a native web thing in Python. So he uses Flask and some other stuff to do it. And I've kind of had to learn alongside him. I'm mostly a JavaScript guy, right? That's what I built our Nextlander game database stuff in was React, and I like Next, and I'm more JavaScript. My wife is more PHP. That's like her bag. So like Python, very different, and like getting it on the web, very different. Which means that we have to pay for their apps, and you pay for hosting to run your apps, not like a web server. You pay for something to be constantly running this app in the background, right? So things like DreamHost don't really. I think they canned it not too long ago. They don't really have Python app support. Like you go to something like Railway or Python Anywhere, and you pay to host your app there. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can just build something that I can run and expose to the internet. Locally here. So
to be clear, he wants to like build stuff and put it out there for people outside your house to touch.
He's in middle school. He wants to show his friends.
He wants to show off.
Yeah, he built himself a homework tracker, and then like wants to use it from school and stuff like that. And right now, I think it's not blocked on his school network, so he can get to it. The other thing is I run Pterodactyl, which is my game server, but I only run it locally. And so, you know, while I'm doing this, maybe I'd expose some of this stuff to the web. Satisfactory went 1.0. Maybe it'd be nice to expose this stuff. I run this game server because I have kids, and we can connect to it locally here.
Do you like, real quick, do you like Pterodactyl? Some people on our Discord have advocated for it. It's one of numerous. There's like Linux game server, there's Pterodactyl, there's one or two others that's like these projects that bring a bunch of game servers together and give you an interface to just be like, I want to spin up a Minecraft server. I want to spin up a Quake 2 server or a Satisfactory server. And it's like an interface to just quickly do that. And Pterodactyl seems like the most modern one that I've seen because it's got like a nice web interface.
So I do like its GUI. It was a little bit of it was a little hard to get set up. You have to set up this thing called Wings, and then you set up Pterodactyl, and they have the parlance is really weird. They have eggs and this.
Yes, I dude, I'm not to get off on a pet peeve. I cannot stand projects that like name all of their components after like cutesy things related to like Homebrew on Mac is kind of the package manager most people use on Mac, and like it's not a package, it's a cask or a formula, you know, like. Yeah. It literally, when you like update packages, is like, all right, pouring cask. It's like, you just tell me the thing you're doing. I don't know that a cask is a GUI package versus a formula is a command line package. Like, just say what it is.
So like getting it up and just kind of wrapping your head around it. It took me a little bit to get up and make sure things were working correctly. But once I got it up, I really actually did love the GUI of it. Like getting a game server up and running and getting different flavors of game servers up and running is pretty easy. And admitting it's pretty, I like it a lot. So I do like Pterodactyl a lot. I don't have experience with the other ones, so I don't know how they are, but those are two things I was thinking about exposing to the web. And look, I know enough to know that is a thing to do with caution, right? Like, or at least I think I know enough that is a thing to do with caution. Once you have exposed yourself to the internet, there's risk. There's just risk there, and risk in people coming in, risk in people infiltrating. Once you've opened the door to from your firewall to let traffic in, then you have to be I think you have to be careful.
Yeah. To be clear, for people who aren't network professionals, like what we're talking about here in the classic home user sense is just opening a port on your router is kind of traditionally how you would do this. You would just open that port and point it to the machine that you want to expose something on.
So you got a couple of different concerns there. One is you're now kind of broadcasting, if you want people to use this, you're broadcasting your home IP address, right? Which can open yourself up to DDoS attacks, or it can open yourself up, especially if you're in a stupid job like we have where people are like, I just want to make your day miserable, right? And so there are a couple of different things where I have gone in the exposing to the internet side of things. Let me back up and I'll try and do this quickly. One is internally I run Traffic. It's a build as a reverse proxy, but it's kind of, I use it more of like routing in ingress stuff. So internally on my network, I use my Pi-hole as my DNS server. Every time I type something like freenas.local.my, I'm not going to say it, but my domain, it'll go to Pi-hole. Pi-hole will then say, point that to Traffic. Then Traffic says, oh, I know what to do with this. It should go to this machine at this port.
Right.
And I use it to get signed certificates from Cloudflare. So now I no longer get like, hey, heads up, this is an insecure site. So I get HTTPS and I get signed certificates, and I love how that runs, and it runs great. So that's what I use. That's important to know, because when I'm thinking about going to the exposed to the internet, what I am planning to do is use Cloudflare as my DNS, and I'm just going to say that I'm just going to trust Cloudflare as much as I can at this point, because that's an important step, right? At that point, you're like, do you trust Cloudflare? Like, okay, I'm going to put them in my circle of trust. So Cloudflare offers masking and proxy for your IP address, which is pretty awesome. They also offer a service, a tunneling service, which if you install their service locally, no matter if your IP changes it or not, they can proxy back in, they can get into your home network. Does that make sense? So if I had Vinny Caravella is cool.com and I wanted to hit something locally on my machine with their tunneling, even if my IP changes locally, it'll hit, and they can mask my IP address. They can proxy it.
So like anybody like pinging or resolving that domain that you have is getting a Cloudflare IP, not your home IP.
That's the thought there, and that's security through obscurity, and that's not the best, but that's a layer on there, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty good layer. Yeah. So reverse proxy is something I've been interested in for a while and just never have gotten around to touching. So I've got a lot of questions about it. So my big one is when you talked about like your TrueNAS machine on your network, whether you go to truenas.caravella.com or whatever it is. that domain you're going to, that's a public domain, right? Like that's a domain that has to be registered with DNS publicly and has to, what am I trying to say here?
Have DNS have like a name entries and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yes. Has like full DNS records and stuff, right? Or at least to get the real certificates that are totally validated, so you don't have to click yes, I understand this is unsafe. So that has to be a public domain, right?
So it has to be a domain that you own. It doesn't need the a name records or stuff like that. Traffic will link up with Cloudflare to basically get those certificates for you without. So Cloudflare is doing no DNS for me right now. It is just using Cloudflare and getting a signed cert from them back. That communication is happening within Traffic. So I don't have to do any of that. All my DNS stuff is local at this point. I never go outside of my network. All my port 80 and port 443 traffic goes into Pi-hole and into Traffic. I know I'm saying traffic and traffic. They're spelled differently, but like
Traefik, to be clear, is how the reverse proxy is spelled.
And there's a couple of different ones. I went with Traffic. I think Nginx has a one that a lot of people use as well.
And Nginx is a pretty respected reverse proxy as well. And there's the initials are npm, and that's fraught because npm is also a big Node.js package manager. But what is it? Nginx Proxy Manager, I think is what that stands for, which is basically like a web front end for.
That's the one I see a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the two like most accessible ones I see people talking about.
So the thing I'm looking at doing, aside from the Cloudflare proxying of my IP address, is I'm going to spin up. Now, bear with me here. This might take a second, but I'm going to spin up a second Traffic instance. This is what I'm thinking of doing. That is for external traffic only. External coming in. So somebody types in Vinny Caravella is cool.com. My edge router gets port 80 traffic coming in, right? Because somebody's now requested port 80 traffic, and 80 is HTTP and 443 is HTTPS as far as I understand it.
Yeah, that's right.
So what I'm planning on doing is then taking that, having my router say, okay, all 80 traffic that comes in, forward to port 81 and use this external traffic instance as the traffic cop to then say, okay, you should go to this port, you should go to this. And that way I have separation of my basically of what you can get to from these two instances here. I can put them all in one traffic instance. I was looking it up. Some people said separating them is probably a belt and suspenders way to do it. But I want to still be able to do my local traffic over 80 and 443, and I'll just do external traffic over like 81 and 444, so that traffic can manage those two things separately. And that's the other way I'm going to try to keep things off of my network. The other way too is just having those things be on their own VLAN, so they can't reach out sideways if something happens. I'm like genuinely concerned with opening ports up to the outside.
I feel like that has never, as more people are doing home server stuff and opening more ports and using UPnP, which just punches right through your firewall, and like people are out there port scanning. More people know how to do this stuff and are touching it lately. It feels like the security concerns are just more and more fraught.
And like, the other thing is like running silly home lab stuff. You're relying on not having vulnerabilities in these things, right? And being like, oh, actually, you could just do this thing and bounce out of this network or this environment into something else.
Yeah, whether you're forwarding ports or using a reverse proxy or whatever, always important to keep the thing that is listening on a port on a machine updated.
Yeah,
as much as possible, because that's where vulnerabilities pop up. And
then the more you have, the more you kind of have to run through and make sure you're up to date.
Yeah, then you get into, I've never touched this stuff. There's a lot of people on the TechPod Discord that advocate for stuff like this, like stuff like Ansible, like ways to automate
updating,
like administration. Yeah, like basically writing like declarative configs to just like hit a button and make everything update reliably every time, instead of just having to go like apt update 5 machines every week or whatever.
Some of that stuff, that stuff, it's keeping up with that stuff, and I'm not great keeping up with it. Like even our database that we run for our game server, or not game server, our game database we use for like Planorama and stuff like that. Like that thing, that the versions of Node and stuff on there are not great. I'm like a version or two beyond on React on there, but updating all that stuff, it's a pain in the butt if you fall asleep on it. And like going major versions and not keeping up, it'll take me like a week, I think, to go through it at this point.
That's like one of the scariest things in the open source Linux world is the idea of if you don't update for too long, you can no longer update. Because then it's going to try to jump too many old versions that you missed and update to something that where something's going to break in there, and then your whole thing is just hosed because you didn't stay on top of it and do all those intermediate updates when they were new.
Yep, and there's so many dependencies, and I'm not a great programmer, so I was just kind of like grabbing dependencies from all over and packages from all over. It like sometimes it almost feels like I'd be better off just rewriting this in like it's in React now. I actually really like Next.js, and I was thinking about just porting it over, but it's a time thing. But anyway, the reverse proxy stuff, that's my plan. Cloudflare as the kind of because Cloudflare has a self-interest in protecting itself. So they will stop, as far as I understand, they will stop some major attacks at their front door before they get to you. And then using them to, I'm not going to use their tunnel stuff because that actually blows right past your router. I'm gonna try and go into my router, port forward to this other traffic instance, and then basically just go to the computer I'm going to make as a web server for that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I might have to look at that Cloudflare stuff. I had typed a separate bullet point here where I had thought about running the like something like traffic on a virtual private server, just a little $5 a month instance, and tunneling that to my house. So something like WireGuard. But then I looked at this Cloudflare thing you put down, and that's basically exactly what they're offering, and for free, it sounds like.
Yeah, they have I forget, it's Zero Trust. It's free. They have Warp and they have this tunnel thing. These two products. I think Warp is more like a VPN, as far as I understand. The tunneling is to kind of forward an external thing into your computer. I think I'm just going to do old school DNS record to my IP address and to start, and then I'll work from there. This isn't a huge thing. Their tunneling thing, I forget what it's called, but it might just be called tunnels. I think they want HTTP and HTTPS traffic. I don't think they want UDP or other traffic going over that. So I don't know if you're supposed to be using that for games, or if they, if you're doing a game server and you have other types of traffic going over there. I think they just want, people just call that web traffic. I don't know what the term for that is, but I think they don't want, maybe get TCP traffic. I don't know enough about. I have had to have such a crash course in networking and ports and like.
Sorry, I was actually going to ask you as an aside. This is kind of just like a cognitive question. Like, do you find networking to be like the hardest thing in computing? Because I absolutely do. Like at the level of hardware, like building a computer, like operating systems, like self-contained monolithic systems, I'm totally fine. The second you have like a bunch of discrete computers talking to each other over the air or over wires or whatever, like that's where it goes from the concrete to the abstract for me, where you're going from one computer to a bunch of computers, and my brain just starts coming unglued. Like I just can't keep track of everything once you get to that point. Like networking just consistently is like the hardest thing for me to understand.
I've probably found it to be the most arcane, where it's just like, to me, it's got a sense of like, we don't have a layer of abstraction. You just have to know. It's almost like, to me, feels like, you're coding in BASIC, like, or like you're almost in binary at this point. Like you're just looking at, it doesn't, there's not a lot of simplification here. It feels like you're just like, no, you just need to know the raw materials of networking.
Right. Yeah. Like I tried to understand, what is it the OSI layer model? Do you know what I'm talking about? The like layer 2, layer 3 stuff. Like every time I see somebody talk about layer 2 or layer 3 networking, I have to go look that up and remember what that is. It's like, and I still only have like the first three. Like layer 1 is the physical connection. Layer 2 is the like Ethernet frame level, like digital, but still like the medium that it's traveling on. I think layer 3 is like IP, like internet traffic. Like,
isn't there a layer 4?
Yeah, it goes up to 7. I can never keep track of. Let's see, physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation, and application. That like the higher level layers are like application stuff running on top of the underlying protocol and link, I think.
So I always see like layer 4 as like corporate firewall, or like, I don't know, something like that, where they're like, that's your corporate proxy. And, it's just like the different protocols for traffic. I've got a better sense of ports. Ports were very mystical to me, but like kind of just seem, and again, this is very I'm sorry if I'm making people groan, but it just seems like, no, it's just doors, man. You just got you just got thousands of doors you can choose to open on your thing. And some people decided this is the door to use for this. And some people decided this is not. Like when I was first getting into it years and years ago, and again, I don't have a great understanding of it now, but it always seemed like, what if I use the wrong port? And now it kind of feels like, I don't know, is that port being used?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's probably fine.
You're probably fine.
Just add 1,000 and go up.
Yeah.
It'll probably be fine.
Right. And like, I don't know why Nmap or like these, it feels like these tools feel the most adjacent to like still Windows 98 things that are you're like, I feel like everything I used for networking hasn't been updated maybe since 3.1. I don't know. Like they all look like the oldest grognard tools.
And if you go pull up like the RFCs, the kind of the paper that they filed to propose a new protocol, or, like that's how kind of standards get defined for the internet. The dates on those are always like 1981.
Yeah.
Like not all, but a huge portion of all the underlying technology we use on the internet these days is like 40 years old. And like in some way, like it makes you really respect the people that came up with that stuff because they built systems that have been
robust,
resilient over decades and are just like, there's no end in sight for them. It's kind of crazy how much foresight they had.
I still kind of ignore IPv6. Like I still, I don't mess around with it. I don't know if I should be like, but like I feel like it never really. That's like in case we run out of internet addresses, right? And
yeah,
okay,
yeah. I forget how many like quadrillions of possible addresses there are with IPv6 or something, but like those addresses are not made for humans to read.
Yeah, so I mostly ignore those, and the things that I've kind of tried to get a handle on are DNS. What does that mean? Ports, how do they work? Port forwarding, those types of things. Like I'm like a rules person. I like structure. So like I always want to know like, okay, what are the conventions for your home network? Like when should I use 10.0, whatever? When should I use 192? And when should I use, what is it, like 7? Or what's the other big convention you see a lot? I feel like
for the internal addresses.
Yeah.
It's 192.172, I think, and 10 are the three that are set aside for like these should not be used publicly. These are the internal ones.
So like, what are best practices? Should I like I kind of want to play in that, like I want to play in that dress up game of like, oh, I want to be like a fake enterprise. When should I use 10 for like my computer, or like should I use when should I use this? And it seems like there are no hard and fast things when I look them up, but I want to make pretend. That's what mostly I'm doing, is making pretend. But I did set up my VLAN stuff recently, and I'm slowly pushing stuff over into different things. I've got my IoT, I've got my security cameras, I've got my virtual machines, I've got a bunch of stuff. But then you run into weird things where it's like, well, this Roku or whatever needs to access my Plex server, and it's on the IoT VLAN. So does it need to punch through into this other thing? You run into a bunch of stuff, or it's like, no, they actually have this built in. It's a media protocol. It knows that this kind of traffic can hit this thing, but it's cool and fun. And I think the thing that you've mentioned a bunch and I mentioned is I do it because I think it's fun. I do it because I'm interested in it. It's fun. If all of this stuff, if that Proxmox machine exploded tomorrow, would I be, look, maybe I'd miss something from change detection. Maybe I wouldn't know exactly when, every 3 hours if this thing is back in stock. But really, it's one thing leads to another, and suddenly you've got this silly home lab. I don't do any smart home stuff, though maybe I will get into it at some point. It's just for funsies.
Home Assistant is its own fun rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, like I don't do any of it, but I think the other thing that drove me here was everybody's selling you a thing as a service, and I wanted to see how many of those services that I would like to try can I run at home. Like, and there is a kind of an amazing time to do that stuff with consumer electronics, and people make very smart people make cool little code bases and share that stuff. And while there's some danger, there's a lot of cool stuff out there to mess around with. And I don't consider myself a super techie person. I just am fascinated. I love it. I love being able to make little gadgets and toys and run little servers and mess around with that stuff and feel like I've got a toe in the water. You know what I mean? Like the world moves very, very fast. And I like to at least have a little bit of understanding of how that stuff goes. I like to be able to watch a Fireship video and understand some of what that guy is talking about.
Yeah, and then at the hobbyist level in hardware and software, like it's just, there's never been a better time. Like it's just kind of a golden age of cool projects out there. Like there's so much you can learn and do these days.
Yeah.
Like,
and
it's all just waiting for you.
And I think by doing this stuff and at least having a little bit of a knowledge of it, enough to be dangerous, I do feel like I can smell some of the risks, right? Like, am I paranoid? Probably. Is someone going to infiltrate my house through my NVIDIA Shield? Probably not. Or through my TV? Probably not. But it's not unheard of. Stuff happens.
It's fucking TVs, man. TVs should not be computers.
But
they are.
But put that thing on its own VLAN, and then if it could just talk to the internet, can't talk to anybody else, right? Like, and so like I don't know, as everything becomes more and more connected, I like to at least, I don't know, circle around. And same thing with frameworks. Like I love being able to just kind of keep up and at least force myself to understand what's happening in that world, because my God, does it move fast and is incredibly complicated at this point. And I can stand and not have to be in it because I don't work in it. And I could just surface level be like, oh yeah, that's pretty wild.
You get to decide when the next framework comes out and you're like, you know what, I'm good. I don't want to learn yet another one. You get to be like, you know what, I'm done. Or like be like, no, that's cool enough. I'm ready to move over. Or like understand what people are talking about when they're like, here's what AI, here are the risks it imposes and here are the benefits it imposes in coding. And here's why it's interesting and here's why it's dangerous or something to be of concern, and have a more informed view of some of that stuff. Like I use Copilot on VS Code from GitHub, and sometimes I love it and sometimes I hate it. It's awesome for like mundane tasks of like, oh my God, it knows exactly how to do this commenting. It knows because it looks at my code and is like, yeah, this is what you just wrote in your code. And like, great, I've never had better comments in my code than with that thing. And sometimes when I'm writing a function, it's like, I'm like, dude, that is not what I'm after. That's not what I'm doing here. That's an interesting use for that stuff, because like I see a lot of people out there talking about like, oh, programming is dead. Like everybody's just going to program in natural language, meaning they're just going to ask the AI to write code for them. I hate that, because what are you learning? You're not learning anything from that. You're just letting the machine do it for you. But what you just described of doing it yourself, but then asking it like, hey, is this right? And of course, you're still relying on it to know what it's talking about, and it's not always going to do that. But using it more as a gut check for what the work you did rather than asking it to do the work for you sounds kind of appealing.
It's really for repetitive task. Like again, like you write a block of code and then you go to put your comment line in it and it knows you're making a comment and it's like, this function does this. And it's like, oh my God, I would never take that much time to put comments in my code. Like, that's great. That's exactly what this function does. I find that, or the just mundane tasks where you're like, oh, I gotta write this like case for like all these things, and it just knows what you're doing or predicts what you're doing. I mean, there have been predictive text things and tab completion in like VS Code and stuff like that before, but I find that to be cool to the point where I haven't canceled my subscription. Like sometimes I'm like, I should just cancel this. I don't use it enough, and then I'm like, no, that's actually really that's really helpful. Even like when you do Git commits, it'll be like, here's what you're committing. And it's like, and it'll be like, I can write the commit line for you because like, here's the changes you made, and be like, oh, that's pretty fucking useful actually. Because otherwise I just wrote made update. It's like if you were making a game and your patch notes were generated from the work you did, and the Copilot was like, well, here's all the stuff you changed. I could just generate your patch notes for you.
Wow.
And being like, instead of being like major updates, send, right? I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's helpful. I find it helpful there. And, I'm in the AI wars. Maybe I'm a traitor. I don't know. I put people out of a job.
We'll leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you go, I've got one more question.
Oh, okay. Great.
I got to pick your brain about audio.
Oh, yes. The most important part of any production.
I've brought this up on the TechPod Discord and the Nextlander Discord. I've actually asked both sides about what kind of box I should buy. I'm tired of clipping.
Tired of audio clipping of redlining.
Yeah. So I'm tired of fiddling with the gain on my audio interface and never getting it exactly right. Although I think the real answer there is that there is no one exactly right. Correct? Like it's like
not my 25 years of doing it.
Like you might be louder one day or quieter the next. Like there might be more background noise.
Yeah.
In some situation, you might forget and sit too far away. Like
your Windows machine may have just decided to change your internal settings on the thing.
Right. Like there's no one size fits all setting for when you're doing analog audio. I should have stuck to USB microphones, but I shouldn't have. No, I should. This microphone sounds way, way better, but it does come with so many more pitfalls when you're doing like pure analog audio or ways you can screw up.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking for a while about just buying a box.
Yeah.
And putting it in line.
Processor.
So I got, is that the term? A processor, something that does like, it massages your audio in different ways, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's what I would call it.
A processor and like I guess I started to call it a preamp, but I guess that's like a preamp is potentially part of that, but that's not the name of the box.
I would say a preamp is specifically the thing sending some gain to your mic.
Right.
And then you're doing the signal processing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lot of people use the Cloud Lifter as just a little inline preamp. I've got a Triton Fethead, which is basically the same thing, just sticks in the back of the mic and gives the mic some extra juice. But I'm talking about the for people who know audio, the kind of thing that's got like a compressor in it, a limiter, like maybe a de-esser, which makes the S's less sharp, and stuff like that. Like you're in favor of that kind of thing generally, right? Sticking some hardware in there to kind of wrangle the audio in.
I am a big fan of getting it clean before you go in. And I am also a big fan of hardware processing versus VSTs. Or doing it on the computer. So
yes, I started to say because hardware can't crash. That's not quite true, but it's a lot less likely than if some random plugin you found.
Well, a lot of hardware now is just digital anyway. So I am like. The one I use, the 5280, is transistors and a bunch of physical components. It's not pretty much non-digital or electronic in the sense that it's running a circuit board in it at all. It's got processors in it for sure. There are chips in it for sure, but there's no LED screen on it. I'm not like turning knobs to cycle through a screen. I'm a fan of analog hardware to get in there, but you're not going to get analog hardware, but external stuff.
No more vacuum tubes in your.
That's silly.
Sadly. What brand is that? Did you say
Symmetrix?
Symmetrix 5280, is that right? Is that what you said?
528E as an elephant.
808E. Yeah. Got it. So yeah, I've been looking around like one thing, the reason I asked if you were into that stuff, one thing I run across is like, on some audio production subreddit or whatever, you'll find a lot of people saying like, no, you should record as raw as you can and you can just fix it in post. Although there are some things like clipping you can't just fix, right? But
I gotta go higher bit rate or higher depth.
Oh, the 32-bit float audio. Like I looked into that for a while and it wasn't clear. It seems like every device in your chain has to support that for that to work the way you want it to, I believe.
That's my understanding. I don't go 32.
Yeah, I don't either.
Also, you get giant files.
Yes, the files are gigantic, but like I'm just tired of, and people don't usually complain, but I'm just tired of finishing a podcast and looking at the waveform and seeing a bunch of spikes hitting the top of the track. It's just a bad feeling knowing that you're putting out scratchy audio. So I am also leaning away from the people that are just like, no, just do it raw and fix it. Like I kind of just want a hardware net in there.
Yeah, well, there's two different things also. Look, you and I kind of came up through a live environment, right? Like I am mostly in live audio. My experience is mostly in live audio production, right? And you can't fix it in post there. You need it to be clean on the way in and clean on the way out. And there's not a lot of room in post. There is no post really. I mean, you need it to be live. So that's where a lot of the hardware stuff I come into. And again, I know I know a few audio producers and they love their VSTs and they swear by them and they have them all in Pro Tools and they got their big rigs over there. I'm mostly hardware focused because we had the budget for it, and VSTs can be expensive, but they're up to like VST 3, I think now. It's they figured it out. They used to be big memory hogs and like kind of crash your recording session and have trouble. But I mean, what you're looking for is a compressor to take some of the to pull you back down, right? You have an expander to pull you back up, and then you have like you said, I think de-essers and that stuff that are not as important. Really, the kind of a compressor and a gate, I think, and my expander, I've got a gate on the bottom, which is the thing I love, so that when I stop talking, you can't hear anything that doesn't break the noise floor.
Yeah, typing, mouse clicks,
humidifiers, dehumidifiers, background noise, window noise. Like that's a big one for me. Now, when I talk and I break the gates, then you're going to hear that stuff. And I mean, all of this is a balancing act. I mean, you turn the gain up on your microphone so that you can be further away from it. You turn it down. I mean, that's the presence on the microphone, and that's the bubble of stuff it's going to pick up around you. And then you have your volume, which is just making that louder or lower. But I think you should just go pick up a compressor or a box that does it. That Behringer DBX, is that what it is? The DB.
Let's see. DBX is a separate company. I looked at a Behringer. I can't remember the model number. I was not familiar with DBX, but they're I don't know how long they've been around. 1971.
Like the DB.
Oh, they're part of Samsung. I'm sorry, DBX is a Samsung company.
Those are the ones I've seen in racks a lot. The Behringer one, say what you will about Behringer, and plenty of people have, but their stuff seems fine, cheaper and fine.
Okay. I was looking at the DBX 286S is what a lot of people have recommended on like both Discords actually brought up.
And what is and that's a compressor and a gate on there? Yeah,
compressor, gate, de-esser.
No EQ, right?
I don't believe. I'd have to look it up. I think it had some amount of. Is an expander considered EQ?
Expander would be part. No? I would put that in with the compressor chain over there.
I'm not sure if it does any. I don't think it does any real. It's enhancer increases the detail and definition of the high and low frequencies. That's probably not. That's probably not real true EQ.
Yeah, that's doing some business on it, some magic touch on it. So yeah, like a compressor and a gate will get you real far. I do like an expander if it's there, or a noise floor gate. I forget exactly what they're called. Sometimes they called things different things in different models, which can be confusing. So yeah, for live audio, I run my audio through that 528E, and then on vMix, I actually have some VSTs running. That is, I've got one that cleans the noise. It cleans the noise out of everyone's signal, so it tries to get rid of background noise. That's a plugin. I've got one that is a live leveling that will try to keep everyone consistent. There's a compressor on it. There is a gate on it. There's a decent amount running on that. And then when I do podcasts like you and Alex both have very clean audio generally. When I do stuff that has a bunch of guests that I can't, I have less control over, I do run some cleanup on their audio that gets sort of background noise. And again, under the AI model, quote unquote, it's not like a large language model or a generative model, but it does try to fingerprint the audio and just pull out the voice from it. And some of that stuff work. One of the best de-reverbs I've ever seen has come out, and it actually works without making the audio sound like crap, where people sound really echoey or reverby, and it brings that presence right back. Makes the stress of that go right away.
Yeah, that's an example of the good AI to me. The signal processing AI that's just analyzing a waveform and doing something intelligent to it.
Yeah, AI, like, I don't know, is that lowercase AI? I don't know, like, how we differentiate those at this point.
Let's just call that machine learning.
Sure, yeah.
I feel like that makes the point. Yeah, because that's what it actually is. Okay, cool. I will get back to shopping for one of those boxes, because I apologize for all the.
It's like a couple $100.
Yeah, that's all it is. Of course. Here's the real thing. They're all rack mountable, and I don't have a rack, so I got to find a place to put a rack mount size box in here, but I should get one of those, because I am tired of putting out audio where I'm clipping, because that's just unprofessional.
You should I have a silly amount of audio devices. I've got 3 DACs on my desk right now for everything. And
sounds like a whole other podcast.
My 3 DACs.
All right, we'll file that one away for later.
But yeah, like I still have this M Audio Mobile Pre, which I don't even think you could. Every time I find drivers, they're for like Windows XP.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's old, but I still use it because it has the lowest latency. I'm like a big chasing latency. Then I have this like Focusrite Claret Pro or something, and the latency, even when I try to tune the buffer size on it, the latency always sucks on it. And so it's one of those things where when I'm editing something, I want as low a latency with, again, it's this buffer size thing that you always have to fight against. This is why I don't like digital stuff. And it's like, oh, if I see the waveform, I want to hear what I'm seeing immediately. I want 1-to-1 or as close as possible. I don't want it to be a millisecond off when I'm editing audio. It drives me bananas.
Yep.
So
I know that feeling.
Yeah. Get yourself a compressor.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, we'll talk about this offline. M Audio Mobile Pre, you said?
Yeah.
I have one of those in the closet, actually.
Yeah.
My old roommate gave it to me like 15 years ago.
Is it the vertical standing one? Is like the white one, or is it the gray box?
It's the horizontal gray box that's kind of curved on the top.
Does that have 4 knobs on it?
I'd have to pull it out.
Okay.
I don't know, but that seems possible.
Okay, I've had this one for like 20 years.
Maybe I should get that thing out if I can find it. Well, you've got the line on the drivers, I guess.
That's my main one. That's my that's my one I go to when I want it to work. That's what I'm using right now.
Okay.
The Behringer one I have is what I use on the vMix machine when I don't care as much about latency. And the Focusrite is the one I had the most problems with, actually, in terms of getting working. But I use that kind of more as a distribution thing. But that M Audio, I think they were bought by somebody at some point. They changed hands a bunch, and I don't know. But yeah, it's a good little box.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take that thing out of the closet.
I'm always afraid it's going to explode.
They built them to last back then.
I hope so, because I don't think I'm getting a new one of those.
Nope. All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap it up here. I hope. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this has been a fun outlet to.
Yeah, I hope maybe this will purge some of that from the Ramblecast
yes.
feel. And anybody who knows, feel free to reach out to me on the TechPod Discord or not to let me know
what Nextlander Discord.
Yeah, or Nextlander Discord. To let me know what I'm doing right or wrong. Again, I claim no knowledge of especially the networking stuff and all of the home lab hobbyist stuff there. So if you have any ideas or like, oh, it sounds like you got it on the right track, or like, no, be more careful.
Yeah, the thing I'll say for both Discords, the least judgmental technical crowd I have ever seen.
Great.
People are just cool about giving advice and not telling you you're wrong and so forth.
Yeah, and I think that, again, I'll just say for my sake is I'm doing it for fun. Like, do I like if your answer is why are you doing this, and it's like, or so your question is why are you doing this? Just pay your $5 to Railway and have them host it. Be like, I'm doing it because I think it's fun.
This should always be understood as the actual answer. Vinny, is there anything you'd like to plug?
I've got a book club started. No, of course there's Nextlander, where you can go to patreon.com/Nextlander. We've got a bunch of stuff going up with the Watchcast, where we're doing our video game related Watchcast. That's where we watch movies and then talk about the movies.
Ready Player One posting next week.
Ready Player One posting next week. Existenz the week after that. Never Been a Better podcast is recorded. That's where we try to reassemble the Beastcast crew together once a month to get together, and we'll have Austin Walker and who else is on it? Austin Walker and Dan Reichert join Alex and me to record on that. That'll go up, I think, next week at some point. Bunch of stuff, fun stuff. Patreon.com/Nextlander. Biggest thing is just can't do it without your support.
That's true. Yeah. That's very true. Also, endless video game stuff, streams, our main podcast, full video game talk.
Yep. Sometimes you get some tech talk on that Ramblecast.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah. You want to hear the latest and great. You want to hear the follow up to this, where Vinny's home lab is on fire. It will probably be talked about on a Ramblecast somewhere.
Yep. Well, hopefully we never have that combo fire and flood episode to test your multi-tiered backup strategy.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. All right. Big thanks to Vinny Caravella for coming through and talking tech with me. As he said, you can go to patreon.com/Nextlander if you want to support all of our efforts, video game related and otherwise, over there. And you can go to patreon.com/techpod to support this podcast. It turns out, in fact, that your support is the only thing keeping this podcast going. It's 100% listener supported. For only $5 a month, you can hop in on our illustrious Discord full of people that are constantly chatting about everything we talked about in this episode and 10 bajillion other tech-related topics. Every category of computing under the sun, maker stuff, automotive stuff, food, consumer electronics, you name it. If there's anything even slightly tech-related about it, it's getting discussed in there and being discussed by some incredibly knowledgeable and friendly people. That is patreon.com/techpod. You also get our monthly bonus patron episode where Will and I sit around chopping it up about kind of whatever we're working on at the moment, brainstorming for new episodes, sometimes digging into our questionable internet post histories. That's all over there at patreon.com/techpod. Thank you to everyone who supports us, and an extra special big huge thank you to our executive producer tier patrons, including the following: James Kamek, David Allen, Twinkle Twinkie, Bunny Fiend, Jordan Lippett, Andrew Slosky, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you all for supporting us. Thank you for listening. Even if you don't support us on the Patreon, just, tell your friends, spread the word, leave us some iTunes reviews. Those always help algorithmically. We appreciate everybody who listens and supports us, and we'll be back again next week, I believe, for a regularly scheduled edition of the Tech Pod. It's Q&A time. We've approached the end of the month when we customarily take your questions, either via email at techpod@content.town. That is techpod@content.town. Or you can drop your questions into the Questions Seeking Answers channel on the Discord. We will be answering those next week, and we will see you then.